Welcome to Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. Each week, the NI Bullpen will be covering the world of comics, talking to creators, deep diving into some fantastic stories, and much more. Now let's hand it over to the team and turn a page.
And what is going on, everyone? It is Tuesday night, 8 p.m., and you are tuned in for another edition of Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also Nerd Initiative editor-in-chief. Usually to my left, you're right at home, I have a companion by the name of Off the Cuff Tom Craven. He is traveling the morphing grid, I believe is the official statement, because he is going to an undisclosed location this week, but I'm sure if you follow him on social media, you'll be able to track him down. But fear not, our other half of our team is here via streaming, and we definitely are appreciative every time he comes through. He's one half of the dynamic duo of Drafts and Dialogue, bringing you that pop culture dialogue knowledge that you need every single week. It's Matt from Hopskeeks News. Matt, what's going on?
What is up? Man, just the two of us tonight. We're rolling a little solo. Yeah, there's no intro, and I can't even pretend to do it, but hey, happy to be here. We're traveling on our own tonight. We're going to go a little bit into the future, into space, and I'm excited to talk about this one, especially with all the hype that is now resurfaced into the Alien franchise once more.
Yes, indeed, because for tonight's Turn a Page, we are going to be talking about maybe an instant classic in some people's minds. You're going to have to decide by the end of the show, but an anthology series that made a lot of heads turn this year, and that is Alien Black, White, and Blood by Marvel Comics. So we're going to be breaking down the stories that are involved in this book. And no, I did not misstep. I did say stories because this is an anthology book. So there's three great stories to talk about. We are going to be talking about spoilers after we get done with the spoiler-free statement. And then we give our grades at the end of the show. So super chat, if you've seen Alien Romulus, this is going to be right up your alley. And if you're looking for more content from Alien Romulus, obviously, our team here at Nerd Initiative has got you covered with great reviews, and I know our podcasts are talking about them as well. Great episode of 3FN Podcast 2 discusses Alien Romulus this week, too. So I got to give our plug to our guy in the chair. Manning all the conversations tonight, and definitely we have a lot to say about this. So let's get started. Matt, you were the one to pick this book out. What really drew you to this series?
You know, first things first, if anybody's not familiar with kind of Marvel's, they have various different. So Star Wars does they did a Darth Maul, Darth Vader, different black, white, and red series. Alien had one that's black, white, and blood. And Alien came back to Marvel in 2021 initially, and they kind of did some comic books over that time, which were really cool. And then this one in particular, gosh, you got stories from Stephanie Phillips. You got stories from the Hive Mind, Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly. The artwork in this is really cool. Something that these do is they're kind of devoid of a lot of color. They stick to like the three big food groups, if you will, but it's like they stick to basic colors. So black and white, in this case, red. And then there's also a story that's like very fluorescent green amongst the black and white. So it's a blend of things, man. Because typically when you're getting into the black, white, and bloods or the black, white, and reds, they're a lot more violent. And, you know, violent short stories. That's my quick little pitch for you guys. If you like to see some violent short stories, whether it's about Alien, whether it's about Darth Vader, these are the ones for you because they are really freaking good.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, I've been a fan of this kind of stories since DC Comics came out with the first one, Batman Black and White. And it really allows creators to go places that you normally wouldn't see them take mainstream characters. And even with the Alien franchise, it is mainstream because it's Hollywood. It's one of the most famous monsters in all of cinematic history. And they really were allowed to tell some stories that don't necessarily need to fit in any timeline. They're just great stories. And like you touched upon too, it is very violent. So we're going to give kind of a viewer discretion with this, that if some of the panels you might see might be a little graphic for a younger audience. So viewer discretion is advised in that aspect. We want to make sure we clear that up because we don't like to hold anything back and we don't want you being too surprised at the conversation going on. And like you touched upon too, seeing some of the creative team behind this. I mean, obviously the Hive Mind crushing it right now on NYX amongst other books. And obviously Stephanie Phillips and Marcelo Ferrari You're doing big things too. And then Ryan Cady with the final book here. So we are going to be talking Utopia. We are going to be talking The Hunt and Maternal Instinct. That is the 3 books that we're going to be talking about in the Alien universe. So chat, super chat. Let us know your favorite Alien movie too. Like, let's talk about that. I really want to see that chat light up tonight, wherever you're watching, whether it's Twitch, whether it's X, whether it's Facebook, but more importantly too on YouTube. And I'll get the homework assignment done right now. Wherever you're watching this program from, make sure you subscribe to Nerd Initiative YouTube and make sure to smash that subscribe button like you're the Hulk. You also want to tap that bell icon for notifications so you don't miss any kind of shows like Turn a Page, like Wrestling Night Live, like TV Talk, because trust us, we got a lot more coming in the home of pop culture positivity. And some of it is exclusive to YouTube. I really want to stress that. And then obviously tap a thumbs up to let our boss Michael know that you like the content you're seeing here on Nerd Initiative and you want to see more of it. It's that simple. So that said, Matt, give me your spoiler-free statement on issue number 1 of Alien Black, White, and Blood.
Man, so it kicks off in very interesting way. So one thing about the Alien franchise is that, Weyland Yutani is always very corporate, very, just corporate is the easiest way to describe them. And they really lean into this specific book in particular, over these 3 stories. Like one story is essentially, looking at an abandoned spaceship, for example. And then the next story is really they've made like a hunting ground for rich people to go and hunt aliens and things like that. And so it's really cool. There's some really good concepts in this book. And it's matched with some really cool artwork that matches the stories being told. And you kind of get the cool blend of shadows and coloring where aliens are notorious, the xenomorphs are notorious for hunting. That's the big one. Like an Alien, they're notorious for hunting the Marines and for hunting Ripley. And that's kind of what some of these things do. And then we get some look at different aliens, if you're familiar with Aliens, some things like that. So honestly, I had a really good time. I do have a minor complaint nitpicks, but it's good. And I great, kind of just like awesome. That it just made me feel good.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, I think anytime that you go into this anthology style, you never know what you're going to get. And especially too with the Alien franchise, because let's face it, it's Hollywood, it's blockbuster. There's so many different ways to go. And yet what I thought each story did was grounded to an emotional level. And I really thought they played into different aspects of the human psyche, which, I mean, I don't think they had this worked out prior to. But if you really take a look at the stories we're going to be discussing, they cover a wide range of emotions and they really connect with the reader, not so much on like the survival instinct per se, but on more of just the reaction to daily life. And it's kind of weird how it's set up, but it works so well. And that's one thing that really jumped out to me. And I really think that as we're going to be diving into these stories, it's going to kind of convey that to the audience. And really, they set a very high bar to jump in, and they really ran some places with it. So let's get into it. The first story is Utopia, and like you alluded to, is written by the Hive Mind. And we start off with just this impressive first page. And I love the detail from this artwork. So Matt, like you're seeing this unfold, like how deep, like did this blow you away like that first page, like it did me?
Oh yeah, I mean you're in space, right? Space is just this black empty void, and something again, like I alluded to when we first kicked it off, is I like the way that they get to play with different highlighting of colors. So like when you look in her eyes, you see the red glint. On the spaceship, there's a red, and everything else is just black and void of color. And I really like that because it makes the color pop out that much more and really draws you into the comic book. And so like you just see her standing on the bridge looking out into space, and it's this big emptiness, and she kind of has this eternal monologue going on, and it's all very intriguing. It's mysterious. It kicks off in this mysterious like, oh man, what's going on? It's like I said, it's just the emptiness of space. You feel alone. You feel like this sense of quietness, but there's also like a sense of beauty to it. So you're very intrigued right from the first panel.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like I just sat there and I was like, whoa, like this is very, very deep, very like almost like to a somber point, and just reflecting of just this utopia, pun intended, that they built. And you just see the captain here just overseeing this, talking to everybody there, and then just kind of having this vision in her head of what this is all supposed to represent. And then we go right to the next page, and literally we see just the interconnecting parts of the space station, and seeing how everybody is almost kind of paraphrasing the Rayon speech here. And you're seeing just how everybody goes from like where we fuel to fix and votes to retrieve, where we grow to air. And like I say, it's really set up to be this like perfect place in space. But yet the final panel on this page is the monologue of the captain is, "I was proud of them, so united in righteousness, what a fool I was." And when you see that moment play out, what is your reaction to this, Matt? Because I had like a bunch going on.
It's cool. I mean, you're getting to see like this interconnectivity, right? It's everybody is living in exactly like this is. It's a utopia. You almost forget what book you're reading for a second there because everything's so peaceful. Everybody's working so nice together. Like it's all very interconnected, and you really forget. Oh wait, this is supposed to like the other shoe is supposed to drop. This is an alien comic book, and it's a short story at that. So you're ready for something to happen, and I think that's something the Hive Mind does really well. Is that, like they're known for comedy, and if you've ever met them in person, they are two of like the funniest dudes to ever hang out with. So when they get to really lean into more serious things, I think they shine even better than their comedic moments, and they really kind of shine here because, like I said, they make you forget what you're reading and just give you this sense of oh wow, wonder, and I kind of want to go here.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, especially with their writing. And I'll just say like their book they're on right now, The Outsiders from DC. Like you can see them really go pivot from being a humorous book to a very serious one. And how they set this up is like it's something that's a little more different than we're used to per se from them, but it really hits because you're seeing just like this utopia is in front, and it's this wonderful moment, and there's this eerie calm to it, like there's finally peace. And then just with that last panel, everything is thrown out the window, and you're like, how could this happen? And then as the next pages lead on, you're seeing a ship is coming into port, and that's just the catalyst for everything that's happening wrong. And when you see it finally arrive on the dock, like this sequence that's up on screen right now, this jumped out to me because it's like, they come back in, and with Wyland Yutani is supposed to be like, it's supposed to be a normal ship. And then you just see the image of the xenomorph come crashing through, and just that panel on the second page. And I love the coloring done here with just the simple reds with the shadowing of the black and white. I thought this was brilliant, even with the crazy ripping in half of the resident on the ship.
Oh man, it's such a like you. The last time we saw the Queen she was blasted out to space, and so to go from like this peaceful, calm, serene moment, you flip the page. There's a ship docking, and boom, the second the door opens, Queen right there. You're just it's an oh crap moment, and the glass shatters, if you will, and you're seeing people get ripped in half, and chaos just on the turn. Like oh my gosh, it's such a well done moment, and the art alone right there again. How everything is just black, and then just the spraying of blood and red against the pages and the people and the bodies, and the fear that you really see in the captain's eyes too, like just looking in her eyes and the other people's eyes. They're just like, oh man, you can just feel the sense of panic just envelop you.
Yeah, I fully agree. Like you sense that moment. You could feel it as a reader. And anytime you can have that kind of connection, I think it just elevates your story that much more. And to see how it plays out, and just with the coloring, like it's perfectly set up. So then it's like when you start going to the next page where the captain's trying to usher everybody out of there and trying to save everybody, you just see that slow hiss building with the lettering, and just till finally everybody gets safe for a degree. But then, when the page goes and it says, no, it's like you basically were losing bodies, and they're like, well, we don't have soldiers. And to see that kind of, play out, I thought that was a little bit brilliant, that they basically have everybody that could defend them is cryologically frozen. Like, how is your take on this whole sequence?
Well, I mean, it's something you would think that, they would have. Why? What do you mean they don't have even like security guards? But then you're like, well, why would they? They've built this up as this utopia. Why, why would they need to have any sort of army? Like if everyone's working so well together, there's no need to keep the peace. They're just floating through space. Like what is there to be afraid of? So it makes perfect sense to play into that helplessness feel where, hey, we've got this massive problem. It's not just a xenomorph, it's the Queen. and she is ripping through people like paper, and they have no way to defend themselves, and there's just so much despair coming off the pages, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it all just really clicks and makes sense. Like, why would they have an army ready to go?
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense too. And when they finally get the alien off the ship, everybody thinks like it's kind of back to normal. And then there's that final shot where the captain's staring out and seeing the ring of the spaceship and how the xenomorph is just sitting there waiting and plotting. Like I just loved how they did the setup for this. And I really thought that with the coloring that was going on for Michael Dowling and Chris Sotomayor, like I just saw like this was just perfect to set up and really set the tempo for what we're going to see with the other stories, because this is very grounded in the emotion of just like the dream, utopia, pun intended, and
Yeah.
just how quickly it falls apart just because somebody is so buying into the dream of perfection, and yet they realize how imperfect they are. And it's
It,
something. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, like, to hit on that point, think of a time when you thought you were so safe, or just there's something like that hits on a level of scary when somebody has this sense of feeling of where they're just safe. They're so safe. Or think of you like the first time you're a kid and you have this feeling of safeness about you with your parents or something, and then you see like them get hurt or you get hurt for the very first time, and it kind of like there's something just so scary and primal about it. And I think that's why this one works as well as it does, because these people are just living this it's not even a false sense of reality, because who knows how long they've been out there. And if
Sure.
you want to do a cliffhanger right in horror, especially, this is kind of how you do it. You leave on this just dread, like just like that. Their perfect world is shattered, and it's scary. It's hard to really put into words. Just if you've ever thought like you were at a safe moment and you're really not, to me, that's one of the scariest things that a horror comic, movie, whatever, can actually play into.
Yeah, because you literally want to leave on a note like that there's more fear to come, and
Yeah,
leave the audience wanting to know more, but they can't.
it sits
And
with you.
yeah, and I think just overall, like, this first story really nailed that point and really gave that definition of just how much the horror is not so much the violence, because we only had one real big killing, so to speak, in the traditional sense of what we see in the movies, but we had enough foreshadowing that it plants that seed in the mind. And I really think that that's what drove it home of just how this plays into so much human emotion, because when you have that fear implanted in your perfection, how quickly everything becomes imperfect.
Yeah.
So we go from that story into, I will say, arguably my favorite one of this
Oh, I like
anthology.
this one a lot too.
Yeah, The Hunt. And this is one Stephanie Phillips, Marcelo Ferreri, and Peter Pantis. Just this one really gave just this very cool vibe and really flipped the idea of what you're expecting with the story to a complete 180, and really gave the reader something to think about. And this is something that I know you and I are both big Stephanie Phillips fans.
Oh yeah.
This is something she does flawlessly in most of her stories. Like I say, this is just something that when she wants to take a story and twist it like that, she nails the landing every time. And to start out here, what we have a unique salesperson, if you will, selling a dream. Do you want to go over this opening sequence?
You know, it's like I said, it's such a fun change of pace from the horror to like this corporate, right? It's you just picture like this really upbeat commercial of, have you ever wanted to hunt XYZ? Go on, like, you think of it in human terms. People want to go on safari hunts, which I don't agree with, but that's kind of what this is.
Yeah.
Have you ever dreamed of the perfect hunt of catching big game? Well, come down here, and then you have like the sinister look on his face, and that you're like, wait a second. And it's so clever because I don't know why I never thought of this aspect of them catching aliens and essentially putting them in a playground for humans or rich people to go and pay and then hunt them. But it just makes so much sense that I would even watch a movie based solely on this right here.
Oh yeah. Like it's something that we're just so used to seeing in the traditional storytelling sense involving monsters and aliens, that it's always the idea of survival more than anything. So with this story decided to go and really run it to this aspect and really flip it, that yeah, we're going to treat the aliens not as a threat, but like, almost as entertainment. And it's so weird to say that, but it's such a unique concept that they built around this story. That
Well,
oh, go.
no, I was also going to say, to add to that, is the fact that if you think about it, in all of the movies that we've been introducing, even the first story, right? What's happening? The alien is against the humans' will hunting them.
Mhm.
But in this story, the humans are actively seeking out the alien, which I think is a cool way to flip the script and put it on its head, because we've never really seen that in the Alien franchise. It's always, except for, if you want to talk about Alien versus Predator, but we don't really talk about predators and all that. We don't really talk. If we're talking about the traditional sense of Alien, it's really the humans are being hunted by xenomorphs against their will. Whereas in this one, she's like, "Why are we wearing shields?" Valentina, I believe her name is. And why are we wearing shields? We should be out there doing this and doing that. And like, they're paying money to go and actually hunt these creatures, and it's interesting. It's such an interesting concept that we've not seen in this franchise before.
Yeah. And I think it's something that a series like this in the anthology style, you can run with and it works.
Oh
I
yeah.
think trying to do this in like a regular series title, it might be a little more difficult to pull off, but I think in this aspect, like this is one of the crowning jewels of doing these books, and to really have this story of creativity that really challenges you, the reader at home, about what is unfolding, because you're sitting there watching them about to go hunt and they're testing out the weaponry and they're really trying to get their idea about what is the concept of the story, because it's like, yeah, you're supposed to be rooting for the humans, but in this aspect, you almost can't.
Yeah. I mean,
So
they're hunting for sport, and even if it almost, interestingly enough, it makes you sympathize with xenomorphs, which
I was
is
just gonna say,
a weird feeling and concept, especially with what we're talking about. And yes, I know, guy in the chair, Rich, we talked about Predators, which we're going to talk about later. I just meant Alien versus Predator, that concept. We ignore those movies. Uh, but it's such a cool concept that you're like, wow, I'm actually sympathizing with these creatures. That's weird.
yeah, but it's something that it works in this story, because you're
Hmm.
seeing like, who's the real monster, the xenomorph or the humans? Because of just the ignorance shown about their, like, the care for them. Like, the fact that they're hunting them for sport is just a weird idea to implant, but yet it works for the story, and it does flip where the reader's attention is, because you're almost rooting for the alien. And then as we go to the next page, I mean, we see the alien is hunting them because that's what it does. And just this whole sequence of events right here.
Oh man, the colors are gorgeous. We get explosions, so it's nighttime. The lights go out, their shields go out, and they're like, "Oh crap!" And aliens are primal, right? They don't really discriminate, because the aliens are just a primal creature. So they're hunting. They
Mhm.
see it, they sense what's going on, they hunt. That's what they do. So like the green blood of the aliens is really cool. Or we haven't gotten to the lights out stuff yet. I apologize. They get snuck up on, and the guy who is very timid and shy, he kills the first xenomorph, and he kind of is like, yeah, that feels kind of good. Like, he got that taste of blood, and the cool sequences of reds and the blacks and the greens is really really cool.
Oh yeah, like the coloring scheme for this just really works, and especially just adding that little splash of green in, it really makes it jump in. And like Rich touched upon this, they're a perfect organism, and you see this
Oh
play
yeah.
out of how this goes, and especially how they're evolving and they're adapting to the fight going on. And as you're seeing, like, the guns are starting to glitch a little bit, the force fields are off, and everything is falling apart, because the one that's in the treehouse, like you touched upon, is basically saying, like, "Do you know how many people died to save you from those creatures? And now you're
Oh
hunting
yeah.
them for fun." Like, when that line comes out here, like, how is your reaction reading this all unfold?
I didn't see this one coming. I thought they were just going to have equipment malfunction and that be the end of the team. But to twist it again and be like, no, these Marines who are working for the corporation to basically watch over the hunt, make sure everything goes well. It's another really good twist and layer into this story to be like, hey, we had to capture, somebody had to get these aliens here. They didn't just willingly show up to wherever they're at. Somebody had it. And they lost people, they lost friends. And now you're willingly paying money to come here and hunt them for sport while my friend or whomever died doing this. It is like, oh man, the layers and the depth that gets added on. It's just like, again, genius way. This is why it's my favorite story of the book right here.
Yeah, same. I love the take on this, because it literally flips what you're thinking into a complete 180 and runs with it. And I think that how it's set up, especially when that twist comes in and the dialogue that the soldier is saying in the treehouse is just so spot on, that when you're seeing the timid billionaire, we'll just refer to him as, screaming, there has to be a way out. And you just hear the voice go, you have no idea what it's really like to be hunted. And that whole sequence play out, like that's just chills right there.
It sends chills. It's cold. It's like,
Yeah.
oh man, it brings like a cold breeze upon you. Oh man, it's good.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Because that's the point where it grabs you as a reader and says, like, no, they're the bad guys. And this is why. It's almost like a weird sense of validation for what they're doing. Because even though like the billionaires are dying, like the audience has to have like a split decision about it, because it's like the morals, what they're doing is, it's a very twisted concept. But it's like you find yourself like saying, well, they're not great people either. But in comparison to the aliens, it just throws this new trope in.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, who do you root for?
Well, again, that's what makes it so, like, again, the layer. It's xenomorph bad. We know that should be killed. But then it's okay. In this situation, should they deserve to be killed because now they were unwillingly brought to this place, and now they're being hunted by people who paid a lot of money to a corporation and does a lot of pretty bad stuff. The more we kind of dive into this franchise more, so it blurs the lines. And I love when you blur the lines, because then again, it's one of those things that just really leaves you thinking and talking about it, and it lingers with you. And that's the sign of a really good story, whether it's on film or on page, is if it lingers with you. And that's what this one does. It's just like, oh yeah, like, what is the right? What is the wrong? These xenomorphs deserve to die, but did they deserve to die being hunted by rich people? Or did they deserve to be maybe left in space alone where nobody will ever find them and die on their own? Or what was the answer there?
Yeah. And like, do you want, like I say, what the guy in the treehouse and their plan there is that justified? I mean, I don't think it is personally. But it's like, I think two deaths don't make a right. And in this situation, like, but he wants to send that message because that's how he's feeling in that moment. And just like you touched upon, the lines are blurred. So it's like, it's almost like a weird sense of justification, but I mean, like I say, it doesn't make sense, but like in this story, it does, because it's just how it's presented. But you don't find yourself rooting for him. You're just like, you're more rooting for the xenomorphs than anybody.
Yeah,
Like,
really, because again, they're primal. They have a brain, but like they're a one-track mind, kill, essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, like an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. So nobody is right in this situation, and that's what's
Exactly.
cool. It brings a lot of emotion into it, an emotion with humans, and that's when mistakes start to get made, and some people get too cocky. And like we saw with, again, I'm pretty sure her name was Valentina. She was very cocky. Oh, take the shield off, knowing that they never would. But then when the shield comes off, you can very clearly see that she's terrified. And I thought that was another cool thing, because it's like she talked a big game. Now you got your wish. And now it's like, oh, you were just talking just to talk and show you're a big badass. But that's really not the case there, huh? Like, you're terrified. And that fear sets in.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I say, it's just a weird concept that I think the only time I've ever really kind of seen that is like in the Walking Dead universe. Because like I say, any kind of moral code is thrown out the window, and you just have to accept it. Like, this is the landscape that it is. And I kind of had that same vibe here. That's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of it, you kind of sense like there's that very twisted justification that, like, you, the reader, are like, I'm not agreeing with any of this, but like, I'm seeing the points they're making. And it's just how twisted it is with the environment they're built in. Like I say, this story just hit on all those moments and really left me like, this is the story, like much like you were alluding to. This stuck out to me for the same reason. Like, this just blurs that line so much that you're going, oh, and it leaves you something to think about.
Yeah.
And then like we shift from this, and it's like, it's hard to follow this up, but the next story does.
Well, real quick, before we leave this story, something really cool happens. Another cliffhanger.
Yeah.
The alien breaks into the treehouse, and you just basically are left with another image of the xenomorph staring down at the two Marines, alluding to the fact that everybody in the end got theirs, and the xenomorph at the end of the day reigns supreme once more. I just wanted to talk about that because I thought it was so cool.
Absolutely.
How we're, again, like the things that these little one shots do is they leave you on like a little cliffhanger, whether Utopia was a part one alluding to more, or this one definitively says the end. It lets your imagination just kind of run from what's happening from that point on, which is another great tale or sign of a great story.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that's why I think it just really sticks out, and especially like that ending literally says there are no winners. There is no race.
Exactly.
Everybody is wrong, and I love how it just leaves on that note. I mean, it's such a great story.
Yeah.
And then we go to the third one, which is like it's hard to top it, but this one
I
hits
almost wish the hunt was the third act just for that reason, but
yeah, because like it's tough to top, but yet this next one does maternal instincts, and it's taken from such a unique point of view because it's a robot that's controlling the ship, which has like a almost like an AI conscience, and is trying to help a young child that's on the ship that's getting overran by xenomorphs. And I love how like they're setting up with the narration too, because it's really trying to guide and saying, and you hear the guilt. It's all in how it's referred to as maternal instinct, the title of the book. I mean, that really relates to here because you're hearing this and just like the sheer disappointment in themselves for letting the child down. Like when you're seeing the dialogue for this, like that internal monologue of the ship going, what's your reaction?
it's another really cool emotional moment because again, in the Alien franchise, synthetics, AI, they're typically, 9 times out of 10 don't, soulless, lifeless to a degree. We've got David, if you wanted to talk about like Prometheus and Covenant, like soulless, but then you've got in the new film Andy who shows some emotion. So it's very interesting to see this AI computer having this like emotion to it as it's guiding this child. And as a father myself, it's one of those like this is your worst nightmare. Like your kid is alone trying to get to safety. You're not there to protect them. This AI can only do so much. It's not like the physical being that can't actively do anything aside from shut doors and open things and guide the Joshua in this case to safety, hopefully. And it just again plays into fear in a different way that the other two kind of played in, especially if you're a parent. I feel like.
Yeah, I know. I can only imagine how that hits on a parental level. But just even seeing this and seeing the voice talk to him and trying to walk Joshua through the ship and start going literally into where the xenomorph has set up shop, and he's walking by where they're hatching, and you're seeing the bodies captured. Like when this comes on screen, I mean, this just floored me. Like for a young child to walk by this, I mean, how do you process this moment? And then go.
It's done. I'm just saying, like again, like the color, real quick, because we're so used to seeing red. The green, the usage of the green stands out a lot to me because you're thinking like blood, goo. Even though traditionally, like walking through this dark hallway of death, it's so scary. You're right, and he's just looking. He had his head is down. He's walking, arms crossed, like eyes closed. Don't look at the eggs, man. It's really it almost makes you hold your breath as he's making his way through this moment.
Yeah. No, I fully agree with you. I mean, that's the whole thing. Like you're sitting there and you're having those typical horror reactions. Like you're like on the edge of your seat, like going, "Oh God, don't let nothing happen. No, hopefully nothing happens. Hopefully nothing happens." And you see, what is unfolding, and you're just like, "Oh, like how is it going to survive?" And just you're hoping like it gets out there. And then when you see the creature hatch and make the run for him, like on the next page there, like you just see this moment and you're just like,
I was even like, oh, dude, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think you cut out. That's why I thought you were waiting for me. So I apologize. But
no worries, no worries.
to me, at that, I think I audibly yelled out like "run," and my wife is like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I'm reading the comic for tonight." Like I think I actually own this downstairs, but I couldn't find it. But so I'm reading it, and she's like, "What are you doing? Like you're talking to? Are you watching a movie or something?" I was like, "No, I'm reading Alien." It's this kid running through this moment, but you're just like, that's how it grips you. It has as tight as a face hugger might grip you. You're just like, "Dude, run now!"
Yeah. And you just have that reaction, and as you're watching, they really pick up the pace with the art too, because you can really catch, how he's running, and then ultimately when it's saved at the door, and you think that moment is safe, and then all of a sudden that first page you see on the left, the creature come running through the door, and then that reaction in sequence.
The queen again, man. Like the fact that they got to play around with the queen. Yeah, regular xenomorph fine, but again, you're running from this massive behemoth. You're a small child, and now you even see like the self-destruct resumed. It kind of makes you feel hopeless. You're left with this like, well, there's no hope, and it sucks.
Yeah. And especially too with the monologue from the ship, it's saying goodbye, like it's actually acting like the mother.
Yeah.
And that moment is like saying, like, I have to save you goodbye. Like, unfortunately, this is not a natural environment. This is mine. And then obviously what happens with the ship too about blowing it up. And then you literally have the child flying out into space. And just that last moment on the page where he says, "Thank you, mama." Like that hit me. I was like, oh man, like how they've been building it up and just that reaction from the child as he's watching the aliens are getting blown to bits in space. Like that whole sequence, I mean, that hit me. How about you?
Dude, 100%. I mean, what a way to leave this story. Like that's the end of the book, and you're left with that just to sit there, to really, wow, this kid was so afraid, and his, last words are, "Thank you, mom." Like, because there's a psychology thing that I've read that everybody's like last moments, not to like go down a weird rabbit hole for a second, but everyone's last moments, they revert back to like a childlike state where they just want their mom. And so in a lot of people's final moments, whether it's in war or something like that, there's a lot of people that are calling out for their mom and things. So it's just another way of showing this primal instinct that even humans have, much like the xenomorphs have a primal instinct to kill. Ours is to call out for our mom, that maternal instinct. And the ship was there till the end. And it was just like, wow, a very heavy, heavy way to go out.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I sat there the entire time and I was like, I I just was like, this is a lot to process. And seeing how you're seeing it through a young child's eyes, which I mean, we've seen the ranges of humans that have come through this book alone that we're seeing, the higher wealthy class, we're seeing the perfect society, and now we're seeing the future generation all come play and their reactions to these creatures. And this moment just really hits you with just like it brings everything kind of full circle of like, one life is over, another begins, and how this kind of relates to the future, and especially with these creatures running crazy. It adds a lot of depth to the story.
Yeah, it's just a feeling of hopelessness, and I think that's like overall what the book did well is it played into that hopeless fear factor very well in different manners. So like the first one was adults, if you will, this colony has no protection. They didn't expect this alien monstrosity to just burst through, boom, breaks their glass. The next one is like these rich people who all of a sudden like had their stuff shut off. They thought they were in control, flips the script immediately. And then this one, it's a child who doesn't know can't defend himself. Like he probably looks no older than 10, we'll say. So like realistically, what can a 10-year-old do? Doesn't probably know how to properly operate a gun if he could even fire one. And then what is he even going to do at that point? And then you find out that there's no way to even get off this ship. It's just the last alternative is like, well, there I go. And so it's just this hopelessness in different aspects. And I thought that's what each writer and then every artist and colorist and letterer did really well, was really add in with the colors and the way that they crafted the letters through the AI to capture that soulless yet caring vibe in this last story. And oh man, so good.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, there's so much with the art, the presentation from top to bottom, and then the stories. I mean, they really dived into that emotional aspect that you really see yourself trying to process what they're seeing through their eyes of just each character that's facing the xenomorph, and then just the environment around them. Like I say, it's so multi-layered. Like it's something that just really jumped out to me.
Yeah.
I mean, we gave a lot of great stuff that we liked about. Is there anything that you didn't like about this book?
I had something earlier and I don't fully remember. I guess my only complaint is the way they market it's black, white, and blood. I guess there was just a little bit more violence because by the time we get to the violence in the xenomorph, it's like, oh, end of the story. I guess that would be like my only complaint. Very, very nitpicky, very minor. Again, because that's kind of what I wanted. But even in the Alien franchise as a total, like you don't really get a lot of gory, bloody action as it is. So it's just very minor complaint. We got enough. I would maybe flip the Hunt to go last, only because I hated the fact that I had to sit there with like a child had to die at the end. Like that's what gets me, and really, really lingers with me. But overall, man, that's really it. Like I said, nitpicky. Very like, this is just a minor complaint, but it didn't ruin the book for me at all.
Yeah, I mean, I was really struggling to find something I didn't like about this. I would say structure-wise too. I would agree that I thought the hunt should have closed because that just ends with such a moral question, and then you have to kind of really kind of take in the environment it's in. Like, there's a lot more thinking involved with that one. That like I had to read this a couple times
Oh yeah.
just to really kind of get my head in a good place for where maternal instincts start. And it's nothing against the story because it is a great story too, but it's just kind of coming off the complexity of the hunt that really kind of threw me for a little loop. And I really think that, I mean, for the title being Black, White, and Blood, I think they just want to exemplify about for the aliens. So that didn't take me out per se, but we really didn't get a lot of crazy gory deaths, maybe a couple pages here and there, but I don't think it was as wild as it was. I think it was just more focused on the mature reader aspect,
Yeah.
which I can fully get. And it left me in a sense of I wanted to read more,
Mhm.
and I'm definitely going back and checking the series out.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely worth a read to check out for sure. And you're right. It's really hard to go from something that's very complex and you're like thinking and you're really thinking, and then you go into just complete opposite direction, and so your mind's not fully ready to go into this next story almost. So I was like you, I kind of had to take a little bit of a break just to be like, oh, I'm thinking about this. All right, I'm gonna go back and finish the book, and then I'll go back. I did read it a couple times myself just to be like fully see if there's anything I missed. But it's hard. But again, it's really just one of those nitpicky things, that right? It's well, how do you want your story to end? And I think they went with this almost because it's a heavier ending. You
Yeah.
didn't have to think as much, which for some of us we'd like to think. Some people it just left you hopeless, and sometimes that's a really good.
No, I fully agree. I mean, that was one thing I thought they really nailed is like they gave you a lot to process, and just I think the structure of it, it's great for a couple reads. I mean, not because it's a great book first and foremost,
Mhm.
but just to really process everything's going on. Because, like I say, I started kind of flashing towards different universes with a couple different stories, just because there's a lot of certain elements that really pushed me as a reader to kind of think. And like I say, I use the comparison with The Hunt and The Walking Dead a
Oh yeah,
lot because there's certain, at least in my opinion, there's certain stuff there that I can kind of see blending in a little bit, but they both stand on their own. They both do their own things, but it's just kind of put in that mind frame of just like how fast humans can crumble.
oh
And
yeah.
and
We are
just
fragile creatures, man, especially when we're faced with any sense of pressure.
yeah, and you see that through here. And like I say, we've seen this in many instances. And I thought for what they did with the aliens here, I thought they really kind of took different approaches and they all worked, which is a great joy to the reader. But even so, like, of the creative aspect, because when you get this book and it's really something you don't want to see something you've seen every day. And that's something I think they really wanted. I think all the creative teams here really wanted to push is we're doing different stories involving an iconic character.
Yeah. It's nothing you've seen before, I can promise that. If you haven't read this book, it's not your traditional alien story, and they're 3 stories that are just 3 different directions from each other. They could
Mhm.
not be further from each other, and they're great in their own way, and you want more, and that's to me what makes a great book. Cap, what are your thoughts? Do you have any nitpicks there, Cap? Like, were you weren't able to throw your shield at, anything like that? But
I think Cap was just saying he wanted a piece of them, and if it was
you
Cap
could
versus
do it all day.
aliens, I mean, yeah, he can do it all day. I mean, it just depends on what timeline it is. I mean, we haven't even gone down that rabbit hole, but that'll be for another show. Rest assured. So chat, super chat, throw your grades in. We definitely want to see what you rated this. If you read this or you're going off our recommendation, where do you think you rank this 0 out of 10? Matt, we'll start with you. What is your grade on Alien Black, White, and Blood #1?
Ooh, man, I'm giving it a 9.5 out of 10 just for the very nitpicky. I wish they would have swapped the stories and maybe got a little crazier blood. But again, that's just nitpicky. Otherwise, I don't have a single complaint. The art is amazing. The usage of very basic colors, like you get black, red, white, and then you get green. Very, very basic colors, and they all pop in their own way. The stories were very expertly written. They left you thinking in various ways about where they can go. And so for me, 9.5 out of 10, easily. This is a must read.
Yeah. This series really caught me off guard. I'm not going to lie, because I know anthology stories. I do love reading them. I mean, everything from Batman Black and White to Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Redder. and even the Star Wars series that have just come out recently. I think they've all done a great job about telling different stories involving iconic characters. And going in this one, I wasn't sure what to expect because, I mean, obviously we know the alien creatures. We've seen plenty of great movies about them. And to kind of see how it was going to translate in comic form, I thought each creative team really went out of their way to establish their own voice, but really kind of keep it around the same theme of human nature and human emotion. And we do see a lot of different variations play out, and they all work and they all tell a very good story in their own right. I think the only thing that we've touched upon before is I think the structure of how it's set up. I think with where the hunt was, I would have swapped it with Maternal Instinct. Not that there's anything wrong with either story, but I think just with how it leaves you as a reader, I think it gives you a lot to ponder going into the next round, because now you're going to be going, how are they going to top this? And anytime you can do that with a #1 issue, you've done your job. So for this one, this is a 9.2 for me. That I think it's very near perfect. I think, though, just for me as a reader, it threw me out of the headspace after reading The Hunt and trying to go back in. Like, I had to do it a couple times, and it was worth going back because I do love Maternal Instinct. But it threw me for a loop reading that, because I started processing stuff. And like I say, I made a lot of comparisons, like the Walking Dead aspect and certain areas like this, where it's, what humans think of aliens, or in that kind of aspect, like that kind of confrontation stuff. But but all three stories give you something different, and they give you something to build off of. And this is the job of any great anthology series. So highly recommend picking this up at the comic shops or on digital, wherever you can go get your comics, because it's well worth the time.
Yeah.
Speaking of comics, tomorrow is New Comic Book Day. We have a loaded lineup, and I do mean loaded, at nerdinitiative.com. Nobody's doing reviews like the Nerd Initiative Bullpen, starting at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until we get done talking. Every 15 minutes, a new review drops. So, Matt, what are you picking up at the shops this week?
For me, man, speaking of a little callback earlier, Rich and I joint reviewed Predator versus Black Panther. You know me, if it has to do with the Predator alien, it's awesome. Now, this story in particular, good Lord, Benjamin Percy comes flying in with the steel chair. I will tell you that much. The way he really sets the stage and gives you some background into the Predator lore, and then also like really ties the Predator clans with the Wakanda tribes and how similar they kind of are, but different at the same time. And it really makes sense in a storytelling aspect, and it really sets the stage for something to come down the pipe. I think absolutely, god dang, my #1 pickup this week. My #2, actually, I'm going to give real quick, because I saw that there was the graphic for it earlier. I'm going to shout out Lawrence real quick, because I did read it. I actually read it. Wolverine Revenge. I read this earlier as well. I don't think people are ready for what Jonathan Hickman and Greg Capullo do in this issue right here. Their final pages of this, and I'm not going to tell you, but it blew me away. And I think readers, I cannot wait to see the reaction from this book right here. Pick that one up as well. When you're at your shop tomorrow, like run right to those and pick up all the ones we're telling you, but Wolverine Revenge, there's going to be some fan reactions that I cannot wait to see.
Yeah, I'm going to say the only spoiler I'm going to say about that book is that is our lead review at 9 a.m. on nerdinitiative.com. So stay tuned for that. Before I give my pick, I got our guy in the chairs pick of the week. And this is one that he's definitely been raving about. And that is from Oni Press.
Ooh, yeah.
And it's the return of EC Comics with Epitaphs from the Abyss, #2. So the first one, like I say, if you like the anthology style, this is right up your alley. And it's a great, great book. And Rich has got a lot of thoughts on it. So you definitely want to make sure you check his review out when it drops tomorrow. And then last but not least is yours truly. And this is a return of a series I fell in love with last year. And I am more like, I'm trying to contain my excitement that is returned, because it blew me away. And that is Black Cloak #7 from Image Comics. Kelly Thompson and Meredith McLaren are back. And this is fantasy meets murder mystery. There's so many elements going on with this. This book is just amazing. And it, like I say, issue 7 picks up Obviously, a lot of things, if you've read the series, went down in issue 6, and we've had to wait a year to see what happened. So I'm not giving anything away about this. I'm just going to tell you to definitely go check this out.
What if we just talk Black Cloak issue 1 next week then?
We may, because that is on the docket, unless there was something that came in on the wire. I'll give a little peek behind the scenes.
Uh-oh.
We might be having somebody else swing through next week. We have to finalize some time, so stay tuned. Definitely want to shout out to Skybound Entertainment. Rich has got Destro #3 dropping to Energon Universe, absolutely crushing it right now. So I will say this, and I guess we'll leave it for our own cliffhanger for next week. We will be talking Black Cloak #1, unless the stars align and we have somebody fly through and talk some shop with us. So stay tuned. ... The
guy in the chair, you just ruined the surprise. Dang it.
Hey, I mean, maybe Rich will be coming through next week. I mean, that'd be a bonus surprise, but we've got a lot of stuff lined up at the home of pop culture positivity. So that's what we say. Make sure you drop those subscribes. Make sure to drop those follows, those likes. Make sure you're not missing anything going on, especially on the YouTube channel, as you see the QR code right there. But before we get out of here, Matt, why don't you let everybody know what's going on with you in Hops Geeks News?
Oh, man. Well, we are rolling. We are doing some fun stuff. We just talked D23 this past week. We are going to be live Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We have a guest coming on, Fugitive Poems. They've been on, friends of the show, to talk about some of the comics that they're doing. And then I always put our Cantina hour up. So if you don't catch our lives, we put it up on there. And then I think we might be doing a Gambit deep dive for next week's episode. But every Monday, we drop a new podcast. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff to what we're doing there. And there might be some guests rolling through soon, but then you also might see all of us together here in a couple months in the wonderful month of October. So the only way to know all that is to scan the QR code and come hang with us, man.
Absolutely. I'll definitely give a plug to our guy that's usually here with us, Tom Craven. He's going to be traveling out and making some rounds at Power Morphicon this weekend. So you want to make sure you're following the socials. He'll definitely be having a lot of stuff to say about it. And also, we would definitely want to plug our guy in the chair because he's always doing hard work. He has this 3FM podcast. They are just talking Alien Romulus. So if you want to hear more Alien talk, boom, it's right there at your fingertips. And you can definitely talk about that on a more adult humor scale. And they definitely call it right down the middle. So if you want the honest take on the movie, boom, right there it is in your eardrum. So make sure to make that happen. And as for yours truly, ODPH has got a lot of stuff going on, especially with a brand new episode, because we like to get those out of the way first, because then it gets a little crazy with everything going on with the comic book day and Wrestling Night Live, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time this week. Rich is back in studio, so the triple threat will be breaking down everything going on with the G1 Climax Fallout, WWE, and I know we're doing double duty because AEW All In is taking place this weekend from Wembley Stadium. So rest assured, the NI wrestling team is going to have a lot to say about it, and you'll definitely want to make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss when the pre-show extravaganza, if I may use that, is going to be dropping, because we'll definitely give our picks for AEW's biggest event of the year and definitely be interacting with you, the fans, to talk more about it. And like we say, nerdinitiative.com is the place you want to go, and you want to make sure you sign up for everything going on there. Like I say, the YouTube channel is taking off, the Twitch channel is picking up, and you want to make sure you go check out all the fandoms that are happening there, because we've got stuff coming from movies, TV, comics, sports, news. Oh, wait, I said that. Oh, I did say that aloud. So
football season starts next week.
Yeah, you've got a lot of stuff going on there. So if your fandom's not represented, rest assured it will probably be represented by 2024's end. And we have a lot more content on the way, even stuff that I did not let slide that has been getting worked on as we are recording tonight. So we'll have a lot to say about that. So make sure to subscribe for that. If you want to get some swag for con season and you definitely want to represent the brand, Nerd Initiative merchandise is there. That is the only spot that you'll find the Nerd Initiative wear that you see on a lot of our programming here. And you'll be seeing a lot of the cons happening for the rest of 2024. And last but certainly not least, we have one more homework assignment that we just like to, we can't emphasize enough. It is make sure you are subscribed to Nerd Initiative on YouTube. Wherever you're watching us, we do appreciate it, but YouTube is the place you want to go for exclusive content. Tap that bell notification and make sure to hit that thumbs up to let our boss Michael know that you like the content you're seeing on Nerd Initiative and you want to see more of it. So if you want to see more comics talk, boom, hit that like. If you want to see more wrestling, hit the like for Wrestling Night Live. If you want to see TV talk, more TV there, boom, hit that thumbs up and let the bosses know that you are a fan of everything going on at the home of pop culture positivity. So that being said, thank you as always for checking out Turn a Page on YouTube. And remember, when you're at the comic shop and you have a great issue in your hand, such as Alien, Black, White, and Blood by Marvel Comics, and you see somebody struggling to find something, hand yours off to them. Tell them to turn a page. We'll see you next week.